No, we'll.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to see everyone here. This is such a great way to connect. I'm Carol, and I'm here in Taos with my son, Marco. And we always start with introductions. Tonight we have Dr. Perez here, and I'm going to do a longer introduction after our icebreaker. And so let's just get started. So we always start with just the name that we want to be called. We're going to go around to everyone, a name we want to be called, pronouns, and tonight our icebreaker question actually does have a little bit to do with our topic, and it is name one thing you do when you're nervous or anxious that calms you down. So let's,
Just one?
what's that?
Just one thing?
Okay, choose one. Just gotta keep it short, but you can do more than one if you really want to. That's fine. Marco, do you want to start?
Thank you. Thank you, Diego. Thank you, Diego.
Okay, you're welcome. So
You,
your name is?
my army. I can get you. I'm Michael.
I'm Marco, Army ROTC. What is your are you him, he, him?
Yeah, I go to me, but I got to keep Michael. I got to keep
You like to be
Michael.
called King Marco? I know. Okay. What do you do when you're nervous or anxious?
I work my army up and kind of get my down.
I think that was a trick question. You look at your iPad, huh? Okay.
Got ready to come and go.
Okay, JB, I think you're next because you already have so many ideas percolating. Oh, you're muted.
Okay, better.
Better.
I'm JB. I go by she, he, they pronouns. I pretty much go by any pronouns as long as you're being respectful. And I say when I'm nervous, I don't know. I can't pick just one. Fidget. I twitch my nose. I like have so many play with my hair. Usually, I'm always like doing this. So that's three. I know you only said one, but there
That's
you
okay. That is fine. That's wonderful. How about Reverend Mona?
Oh, okay. So you can call me Reverend Mona's fine, or Mona, or Mo. I'm she, or her, and I like my pets, so my pets calm me down. So, and when they're not around, I guess music does, depending on the music type. So, either Christian music or I like classical music. So,
Beautiful. I wonder if Reverend Denise this is a time to unmute.
Yeah, I can go real quick. I am Denise, or Reverend Denise, and I go by she, her. And the thing that I turn to are lighting candles, and it's a very specific candle that I like to light.
Wow.
Okay. Dr. Perez.
Hi, I am Dr. Perez, go by she, her, and it depends on the type of anxiety and how high it is. But on my lower levels, I use positive affirmations. Higher levels, I go get a massage.
Go get a massage? Is that what
Oh,
you
yeah, a
Nice.
good beating.
I love it.
yeah, I have an affirmation. I say from Louise Hay, I can see peace instead of this.
Oh, I like that.
Yes.
I'm gonna remember that. Okay. I am Carol, and she, her, and I think one of my favorite things is just to talk to a really good friend. If that's not available, or especially if it's just in the heat of the moment, I think just kind of hitting the pause button and taking 3 deep breaths and just pausing for a minute helped me
Okay.
a lot. So, and I liked everything that everybody else said, so that's wonderful. I'm going to go into, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Dr. Perez. Dr. Kim Perez is a passionate practitioner in the psychology field with experience in the community setting as well as in criminal justice and outreach work. Dr. Perez offers culturally appropriate and holistic mental health service to adults, adolescents, and couples, healing body, mind, and spirit. She provides treatment services for an array of psychological and behavioral disorders and has over 10 years of professional experience that includes assessments, groups, and individual therapy using EMDR, CBT, humanistic, and existential sorry, therapies, motivational modalities, and other evidence-based practices. In her advocacy work, she is particularly focused on various mental health facets of law enforcement and minorities within the criminal justice systems and religious organizations. She is licensed as a licensed psychological associate, LPA, licensed professional counselor supervisor, a licensed sex offender treatment provider supervisor, and holds a doctorate of philosophy and psychology from Capella University and a master's degree in psychology from Houston Baptist University. Wow. Those are impressive accomplishments. Why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into your work?
Mm. I didn't find my passion toward mental health until I went out and lived life. I didn't know I had the characteristics of, that's needed to be a mental health professional. I wasn't introduced to this field early in life, as far as being an option to explore. So I had to go out and live life. And about 10 years of living after high school, as I was speaking on earlier, just a lot of divine intervention moments happen that put me in a position to make decisions in my life and think about the direction. And I found my passion, I found my niche by happenstance. I actually wanted to be a sex therapist. I think Dr. Ruth had something to do with that. But when I went to complete a practicum, I, was only offered kind of garden variety options and a lot of children, ADHD, autism, that sort of thing. And so I cold called potential supervisors, and I met my first supervisor who was private practice and doing sex offender treatment. And I was like, okay, that's close to sexuality, right? Let's take a look at the deviant side of things. And from there, doors just opened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a really interesting interesting way toward that path. And so, but with your interest in sex therapy and sexuality, that must give you a kind of a special perspective that may help with people like like our group, like LGBTQ plus people. And it seems like that we have, like, in groups like that, there are specific mental health needs as well as differences in how, in what kind of therapy or therapist works best for us.
Yeah. I think that if you are a professional in mental health field and you work with the population, it definitely takes some understanding, some exposure, and some cultural knowledge base, because I do view this as a culture in of itself, even though it's not sectioned out like Houstonians or black or white, or it's a culture in of itself. And we are working on ourselves just like anyone else, with very basic concepts on what to do with our bodies, how it should look, how it should feel. And so it definitely takes a special techniques to be able to address those identity things that tend to come up a lot in our culture.
I know that at least historically, some issues like depression have been much higher in LGBTQ plus individuals, and we're hearing a lot lately about how the rates of suicide for trans folks are so heartbreakingly high. Has that changed over time? And addiction rates too. Um, uh, do you think that's improving in any way, or?
Um, I think it was going in the right direction until COVID threw us for a loop.
Mm.
I think that sort of set, kind of a hindrance, if not backpedal onto, into some very poor coping ways of dealing with stress and anxiety and depression, which a lot of people had because this was happening, and they didn't know what to do with it. And what I mean by moving in the right direction was the just the simple embrace of mental health was starting to happen. The simple embrace, but yet the skills, what to learn, how to learn, they just more awareness on its importance was taking place. So backpedaled a little, but I think that happens when it comes to when things recalibrate, things kind of fall backwards, like we see in other climates.
I I've heard some on the news too about just how the changing political climate has made a difference.
Mm,
Uh, not 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 necessarily positive,
yeah,
especially when there's a lot of negative talk
yeah,
on the airways.
yeah. Well, I mean, in relation to, yeah, political, um, but when we think about sexuality, identity, and mental health, it has been treat sex by itself was such a taboo, just sex by itself for so long. So it's weird. It's like at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to um really fully integrating and dealing with that aspect. It's sort of like that parent that wants to work to make money. They don't have time to be sick. They put it down in the bottom. My kid's sickness or my kid's school or my job, and but their sickness goes like down at the bottom, right? And so sexuality, sex in itself has always just been right there at the bottom of the totem pole. So even when these harsher times, even politics sometimes is higher ranked than sex and sexuality. It's strange, even though this is naturally part of our animal kingdom.
Yes.
Mm.
Well, what are some preventive things that we can do for our own mental health? We talked a little bit about coping strategies. What else would you add to the things that we've said?
Mm. Preventing things. Well, I think everyone's approach, as we went around, which was a good icebreaker question,
Mm.
and you could tell each one had different answers, even though we could relate to each other's coping strategies, but individuality is what could really answer that. It's based on the person. So I could give you maybe a general list of coping strategies, but what you choose, what you practice, what you find helpful will definitely vary across the span.
Well, when some of these things fail, how does a person know when it's time to seek outside help?
So, I find that if I took one coping strategy, which is yoga. Yoga is, it's used in the Middle East. It's actually a very good technique, but not everyone could sit still with themselves. I remember that episode in L Word, if any of y'all watched L Word, where she goes to the monk. It has to be silent, right? But only to find that Yelp therapy, which is what she did, it's a version of what we call Yelp therapy, was actually a better, way to deal with her stress and her anxiety and her sadness. So I think I'm sorry, did I hit it in mid? Somebody.
No, I think I hit it. I think he's
Oh
coming.
yeah, it hit it on my side. Sorry about that, yeah. So when deciding when it doesn't work, this is where counseling definitely helps. It helps that outside eyes looking in to see if you are being your worst enemy, or this may not be something for you. So let's try something else. So I think whether it be therapy or a friendship that you trust, or a family member that you respect their thought and opinion, it would definitely help for you when making that decision if something is working or not.
Mm. Oh,
Wow.
that's good advice. There certainly is a lot of stigma around mental health issues, and sometimes it's hard for people to overcome that and reach out. But I think about how some of that is improving a little bit, and I think that there are just, I think as leaders try to be more open about their own situations or family situations, I think that helps. I remember one little cartoon that I might have mentioned in this group before, but I remember like a set of two boomers, my generation, uh, like talking to each other, and just like one's like looking around. I'm going to have an appointment with a therapist, and then the younger generation is just like, hey, did you hear what my therapist said? It was so funny, So
Mm-hmm.
I hope that some of that is changing, and I try to just uh, be as be as open as I can on a personal level. What do you think we can do to help decrease the stigma, both as individuals as well as a community of faith?
Mm-hmm. Reducing the stigma, do what we're doing now. As mentioned, we have more access to information than we ever had in our entire lives. And so we definitely want to put it out there, that, mental health is something that you cannot no longer leave behind. We are working, some individuals are still working off the thinking of older generations of that hard worker will get you the glory, the the physicality of yourself will bring in the rewards. And didn't weigh in on the importance of the mind. So now that we are, unfortunately, it's a kind of double-edged sword, media bringing it to attention, and these outlets are bringing to attention in both good and bad ways, it lends to conversations. I hear individuals use more terminology now that it's in our DSM, that book that we use for diagnosing, to try to label and figure out what they're thinking and why they're feeling the way they're feeling. I love the term, like we have some researchers, like Sue et al. When it comes to microaggressions. Oh, microaggressions, what is that? And now we find ourselves using it in the vernacular to describe when we're going through something. And if we can describe what we're going through in our lives, then we could get to the root of the emotion. And if we get the root of emotion and we get the right emotion, then we can look at problem solving solutions. Yeah.
If we can kind of overcome that barrier of stigma and we do reach out for help, how do we, as queer people, as people of faith, as people who may have had some religious trauma, how do we make sure that we find the right type of therapist or other help?
Yeah, why?
Was Marco adding to that question? I want to make sure Marco's being heard.
He was just kind of repeating what I had asked.
Okay, all right. Okay, it's a loaded question, of course. So it depends on what you feel you're working on. If you're looking like at types of therapy, it depends on what you're working on. If it's identity, it depends on what you're working on. If it's trauma, like of course you see the EMDR, or the prolonged exposure therapies. So we label it when it comes to your issue, whatever you view your issue, you can go in and look for evidence-based treatment for that issue. And that should give you a good start on how to look for what type of therapy, because if you know what your issue is. Now, if someone does not know what their issue is, and that happens, then just going. Just going. If it has to do with, relatability for you, then look for someone, just go, but look for someone based on what you feel your relatability is. I want to talk to a woman as opposed to a man. I want someone Black versus someone white, or whatever that is okay. That is quite okay. That's how good conversations start, with getting you to a point that you're feeling comfortable enough to share your story, to find the core of why you feel the way you're feeling.
One tool that I have used in the past, and I sometimes recommend to other people, is something like psychologytoday.com, where you can put in what, kind of what your interest or issues are, as well as your insurance. Speaking of barriers to care.
Yeah. That
you
definitely is a
recommend
resource.
something like that?
Okay. There now, they have given therapists labels that work with the LGBTQ community and minority communities, specifically as BIPOC. There are a lot of resources, platforms, just like Psychology Today, that are now coming up that are nothing but BIPOC therapists.
Oh.
So that would be a way of looking as well.
Nice.
Oh, okay.
You mentioned EMDR. Could you, I'm not sure everybody knows what that is. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Right.
Okay. EMDR is eye movement desensitization reprocessing. It's for trauma work. What that is Shapiro, who came up with this concept a couple of decades ago. She was in the lab and she was stuck on this problem in a lab, and she likes to run. She's a runner. So she's getting ready for her run and she's thinking about this problem that she's having in the lab. And she notices as she's running that her eyes are shifting while she's thinking about this problem. She goes back, she's like, something's to this. Something is, something's happening here. So she goes back, does brain scans of, this eye movement and what's happening. And what she found was when you are processing something, whether it be, mostly emotional, because a lot of emotions are tied to a lot of our thoughts. We rarely have just simple, neutral thoughts with that lack of feeling, not unless we're psychopathic or something like that. But so she found that based on our brain structure, because our primate brain sits in the center and our human brain is the outer, when you do the shift, you bring your thought process and that emotional energy up into your thinking brain where you can process it bilaterally. And it's called bilateral stimulation. A lot of trauma is stuck in our primitive brain. It's just stuck. It's like an energy ball, an electrical energy ball. So then when you're triggered, that energy ball goes off, but it's strong and it stays right there in the primate brain. If you take that energy and you process along with the thought and the emotions that you have, and you process it across your brain bilaterally, you can move past the trauma. It's not about getting rid of the traumatic memory. It's about processing in a way where that energy is not sitting, and everything that you do from that point on is based on that overexertion of energy in your primate brain. That's pretty much the summary of that.
Wow, that is so fascinating.
It is. It's good stuff.
I'll be well.
They took it and worked with veterans, and it was huge results. Huge results.
That's awesome. I think I've been asking so many questions. I bet some other people would like to. Craig, you have your hand up.
Okay, so I have a question. 23 years ago, my mother passed away. We couldn't get a hold of her. She was in her apartment. People went to find her and knocked on the door. Nothing happened. And so when they finally got people there to get the door open, they found that she was dead. So I had that experience. And then yesterday, the same thing happened to my older brother. They went to his apartment and the car was outside, the doors were locked, and there was no answer. We were texting and calling. And so when the police got there and when the apartment manager got there and they opened the door, he was gone. He was gone inside. So how do I bridge the gap of those experiences? And I'm not even sure how to phrase my question, Dr. Perez.
Yeah.
That's why I'm late to this meeting, because I've been dealing with this all day long.
Mm-hmm. It's compounded, like a compounded trauma. Complicated grief is what it is. So it's sort of like just taking little stabs, and then you look at yourself and you have all these wounds, kind of feeling. It's not like the sexual trauma or, a violent trauma where a specific, act happened to you. So in situations like that, this is not uncommon in the LGBT community. And let me just say that. Let me preface that. There are a lot of individuals that have been reinforced with harm based on someone they know that has been harmed, right? And so that draws fears and anxiety and sadness. So to contend with, your complicated grief, this while you are in your emotional familiar state, you want to go and start exploring it now instead of waiting later till everything settles, because your brain consolidates, right? It consolidates and stuff and stores. And when that happens, then you have to do more extensive work to dig it out and deal with it. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Okay. So I would definitely look for a therapist that, works well with complicated grief. And based on, them asking you certain questions, it could be determined how traumatic, because there is such thing as a perceived trauma that we found after 9/11 happened. You didn't have to be, there witnessing 9/11 to have really been emotionally affected.
Mhm.
So, part of my struggle is that 23 years ago, at 62 years old, my mom passed away of a heart attack. And yesterday, 23 years later, my brother passed away. My older brother passed away. They were both 62 years old. I don't know the cause of death of my brother yet because it just happened. This is very raw. This is very raw right now. And so you're calling it complicated grief?
Complicated grief.
Complicated grief. So that's kind of.
And to add to that, when that happens, especially in the family dynamic, we are looking at our mortality.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, I already know.
I'm 61. Okay. And so now I have both my mom and my brother who died at 62, and I'm 61. And so I have all this grief, I have anxiety, I have a lot of things going on right now.
Well, definitely, go with that route. And also, do it now. Like I said, you don't want to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, because if that's the case, if you kind of believe in the theory you just kind of proposed there, then it's amazing what that brain can do.
Thank you.
Yes, Craigor, that is, our hearts go out to you. That
Well, that's why I'm late to this call, because I've been, I was like, should I even come to this call? And I'm like, yeah, but there's going to be a psychologist or on the call. So maybe there's something I can ask tonight that could be helpful. So I just appreciate you.
This is where you're meant to be with these, yes, this is where you're meant to be. We're so happy you're here.
Thank you for chiming in. And I'm sorry to hear that. I am very, very sorry that this is the moment that you have to have the experience. But I hope I say something that can, position you to start the healing.
Yeah, so I'm taking notes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and thank you also for just taking the risk to be with us tonight and for sharing.
Well, Denise, I didn't know where else to go. I mean, I got off the phone with that Margaret, and I've been reaching out to all my prayer groups and all my people, at MCC Houston and MCC Austin. And I just thought, let me go ahead and just sign in and see if there's a little gem that I could pick up tonight that might be helpful for me going forward. So God bless you all.
You too.
Yes. Yes. So blessed that you are here. And I wonder how we can be there even more for each other in our church and in our worlds.
Well, I
Marco
talked
was very
to,
touched by your story.
my niece, my brother's daughter, I talked to her on the phone and I told her, we were planning to come to Houston this weekend for the 52nd anniversary. And again, she said for the second time this evening, she's like, just go and do that. Be with your chosen community and because nothing's going to happen in the next few days with the arrangements or anything. And so she was like, at 31 years old, she's looking out for my mental health, at 61. And she's like, go and be with the people that you love. And I'm like, okay. So we're still planning to come this weekend for the dance and for service on Sunday.
Gregor, sometimes the drive is therapeutic in itself. Just driving and seeing the countryside can be very peaceful and help to restore a calmness where things have been disheveled. And going to the dance, as you're planning on doing, can add like a normalcy, even though this pain has been presented to yourself. So just enjoy the drive and let the drive heal you in a way.
That's beautiful, Mona. Thank you, because there's so much countryside in between Austin and Houston. And so, there's just a lot at this time of year, there's going to be a lot of green, a lot of beautiful spring things to look at. So I just appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, let me just say, as individuals or as a community of faith, how do we contend with our mental health and how we look at it from a spiritual perspective? Of course, my first question would always be, did spirituality do the damage? That will be the first question. Order. But I'm thinking of Peter casting all anxiety, right? Or Philippians, not being anxious about anything. And the Bible does talk about mental health. Unfortunately, the Bible doesn't talk about how to do those things. How do you cast your anxiety? How do you, do not be anxious about anything? So what she proposed, nature, animals, other human beings, God has put all of these components to feed into when we are trying to problem solve and look for solutions. All of these components. And so I usually tell people when it comes to mental health, just like with your physical health, yes, I'm going to go to God about my anxiety if I'm diagnosed with cancer. Yeah, of course I am. I'm going to work on casting it. But that doesn't mean I won't stop and not go to my treatments at the clinic, or if I have to have chemo or medications, because he put people to create these things. Mental health was the same thing. I really believe that with all my heart and spirit, that he uses people, nature, animals, for all the communication that he can't, because, we like to have him on our shoulder and telling us specifically what to do. But he uses these means for his communication, and I believe that. So if that's something that speaks to you, definitely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry. So here I am, like with a real time situation for Dr. Pettis. and I'm just showing up. I didn't know I was going to show up today. I had every intention of getting here, on time, but I didn't know I was going to show up today with this issue because it just happened.
And you just get a little bit of nugget of my work. I'll send you the bill. Don't worry. No, just joking. I'm joking. I'm joking.
Just in
Got to
time.
put some humor on this, don't we?
You know what? I'm always open to humor.
Yeah.
We've lost, well, maybe I should just speak to me. I can only speak in I terms, but I've kind of lost my sense of humor, in the last few months, and I need it back, so thank you for making me giggle in the midst of all.
Yeah, of course. That's what I specialize in. So
Excellent.
And
Laughter.
Craig, you want to remember to be kind to yourself, be gentle to yourself. Give yourself the advice that you would give somebody else in your situation. So whatever you would tell me, you tell yourself that in doing that. And watch funny movies, watch some comedies, watch some things that make you laugh.
And Reverend Mona, I've been praying for the people on Wednesdays and Fridays for 4 years now, ever since COVID started on our prayer group. I pray for the people, and I'm not in any way embarrassed or ashamed. I'm just, to be vulnerable right now and say, I need prayer now. I need prayer now because I have a circumstance in my life that require, that I would ask for prayer for. So I'm here, and I'm, open. I'm broken open now, and I'm vulnerable, and I'm here, and just thank you so much. I love you all.
Oh, just that we thank God for you, and we thank God for your presence and your example here. It's just beautiful. Just beautiful.
one of the things I do want to add when it comes to our community seeking mental health services, yes, the rates of depression are different, 2 times mental health diagnosis than our hetero community. And for the most part, it used to be more so the concerns of coming out or, internalized hetero behaviors. But I definitely encourage when they work with a mental health professional that if a mental health professional gives them a label when it comes to their mental health, that mental health professional can be very clear on how they came up with that diagnosis or label, not just taking a label and walking away with it. The second thing, because for instance, one of our, diagnosis in the DSM is schizophrenia, and there's various types of schizophrenia, and that comes with psychosis. Psychosis can be viewed as paranoia, but did you know that there's such a thing as cultural paranoia? Right? So it can look like a psychotic episode if someone is not taking the time out to realize that they have a healthy type of paranoia. It's justified. It could be based on the experience, their background, their like the relation, their environment.
When you say cultural paranoia, you mean just like, well, I've been unsafe in this situation before, and now, so I have reason to base my paranoia on? Is that what you
mean? It was created by these 2 guys that realized that when they observe African Americans amongst, mistrusting Caucasians in the areas of like education, law, business, work, interpersonal relationship, politics, counseling, you know, that the feelings that they have were based on some very real observations, some very subtle observations. And we in the LGBTQ community have those same observations. And so some of us have been so traumatized that we are very sensitive to these observations. Like we go out and look for it purposefully to protect ourselves. But when we do that, when we go out and look for it, we're going to find it because we know people think like that, because we know people feel like that. But that leaves you very vulnerable. I'm very much aware that we may have a new war coming on our hands. So if I walked outside and I looked, I could find all the things that would be threatening to my safety because of this. And then I will stop living. And that is not a good place to be. Did I go too deep? I'm sorry.
No, I think that's
Wow.
so helpful. That's
You know,
wonderful.
the tapes that we play over and over, you know. So Dr. Pettis, do you accept that insurance, and are you are you available virtually?
Yes, I am. I am. I
Mm.
didn't expect to get, I don't, but yes, I am. I could send my information to Miss Carol and she could forward it to you if you want to explore that. And that's all I'm going to say.
Okay. I
After this, I'm
understand
going to respect our HIPAA.
I know.
I also want to just,
all
you were mentioning some community work, and I know Kreger mentioned insurance, and that not everybody has insurance, and not everybody has good access to care. So could you say a little bit about the work that you're doing in the community, and are there ways that we can help decrease the barriers to care?
That is awesome. Thank you for segueing into that. I not only have my private practice, but I do community work, which is what they call a FQHC, a federally qualified health center. It's where we have people come that don't have the money, have stressors, whether it be housing, financial job, just the socio and other economic stressors that tend to disrupt meeting our medical and mental health needs. So I work for a clinic. The clinic is called Hope Clinic. They have several across Houston. And so if you don't have insurance, then they just, take this quick application. You don't have to bring anything in, and they can put you on a sliding scale, which a lot of people, meet $5 or nothing at all, depending on, their situation. And this includes working with you in medical needs, behavioral health, vision, dentistry. Yeah.
Wow.
That's wonderful.
Wow. I'll be wow.
Yeah, that is an amazing thing. That's Marco said that touched my heart big time.
That is wonderful. Thank you, Marco. You've given me so many thumbs up tonight. I'm going to get off this call just elated. I am. I love it.
I just love your spirit, Marco. I just look forward to seeing you every time. You touch my heart every time, Marco.
He connected with you really well, Kreger. He had to go have a good cry off screen. So, because he just felt so much for you. And I mean, we all do. I think Marco just shows his emotions in sometimes a little more open ways, and that's a beautiful thing.
Okay, Marco. It's okay, Marco. It's part of our experience. It's part of our experience as human beings, right? okay? And we
I
know
know.
that. So if someone is looking at this video later on, not tonight, but maybe tomorrow or a week or two, 50 years from now, I want to say there's no shame in being vulnerable. There's no shame in saying, I might need a little help right now.
Yeah.
There's no
You-
shame in just reaching out.
That is a good idea, Greg. I think that's a good idea. And maybe I could put this out there that, picking a Sunday service and using clips from this moment when speaking on a certain topic in church and just putting it on the video and playing clips of this. I think that would be a good, way to just, hey, you missed this and this is good stuff and I don't want you to go without it.
Wow.
Whatever that may be.
That's a beautiful idea, and I certainly think there are ideas here that we will all carry with
Mhm.
us and
What-
and bring into our church, into our
Mhm.
community.
Mhm.
This has just been a beautiful summary about mental health and Krager, what a great example for you to bring to this. I wonder if JB or Denise have I hope you haven't missed any opportunities if you wanted to speak up. Thank you for being here. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I just wanted to make sure you were cool as we were nearing the end.
I think this has been a wonderful and timely conversation. You just never know what people are experiencing and what people are going through. It's been very informative and educational, and it's a wonderful example of how community can come together, even when it's just a handful of people coming together and lifting each other up and giving us that reason to keep going. So thank you for tonight.
Yes.
Agreed.
Would anybody like to close us in prayer, or would you like me to do it tonight?
I would be happy to close this in prayer. Holy Spirit, we're just so grateful for the opportunity for this group to gather, for this opportunity to bring our hurts, our pain, into this environment where we feel safe in talking about it and being vulnerable. And we just pray that as we move forward, if people stumble upon this video, they know that it's not shameful to be hurting. It's not shameful to be vulnerable. It's not shameful to maybe say, I need a little help here. I'm in a little bit of a situation now and I need some help. So God, we ask that you bless this, and we ask that if this video gets out to the multitudes, and let's just see how we can multiply your unconditional love for your people. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. You may have had your eyes closed, but Marco was giving you the kissing his fist and giving you the love.
I go get you back. I go get you back too.
Yes.
I just look forward to seeing you every week, Marco.
Yes, love to everyone, and Dr. Perez, thank you so much for being here, and what a beautiful gift. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, bye,
Welcome.
everybody.
Bye, Marco. Bye, sweetheart.
Bye, Kiki.
Good night,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.